Hello, hello, hello. Welcome everyone to another episode of Underground Sound, Even Deeper. And today I'm going solo here. We're doing something a little different here. We're going to be analyzing one of my all-time favorite albums or mixtapes, JoeyBada's 1999. We're going to be dissecting it, looking at the samples, the influences, and we're going to basically get into my main point here is what I believe that this album really is just a wonderful ode to older 90s and even some 70s and 80s rap music, and just well as its culture, and kind of a beautiful farewell to what rap once was. So getting into it, we're gonna go track by track. But even with just the album title, 1999, the album represents what Joey Badass himself has stated that he believes is the last year of the golden age of hip hop. 1999. He believes anything after that, you start to deteriorate in terms of quality. So that's where the name comes from. But now let's get into the track list there a little more specifically. So first up, we have Summer Nights. This is a Lonnie Liston Smith sample, jazz and funk musician, which is of course the roots of rap, and also considered to kind of be dead now, which is why I think this is the beginning. It's kind of the symbolic. It's the start of the genre. It's the start of the album, and I think it's how rap as we know it is kind of deteriorating. Maybe in Joey Badass's eyes, going extinct, much like the jazz and funk sound of Lonnie Liston Smith. So I think this opening really is just kind of the same. Like the opening to this album is the opening to the genre, kind of in like a metaphorical sense on how they all come piecing together. The very next song we have is one of the singles off of this mixtape is Waves. This actually has a Tupac interview from MTV talking about how real he is, how much his music will grow with him, basically how he'll develop, and how this may not be his best album, but the next album is going to be his very best ever, and the album after that is going to be his next best ever. Like, he's only going to improve, he's only going to get better as he continues to grow. And I think that's something Joey Badass himself prides himself in doing. I think it's something that he always encompasses in his own way. I see him as someone who definitely idolizes Tupac, and if you are like me and have dissected his music, Joey Badass definitely loves to grow. He definitely has grown. He's become very different from his music that he used to have, and he's definitely grown with his music, much like Tupac. So I believe Waves here is kind of a shout out to Tupac, and basically where I'm going, where I'm from, and how I'm going to get to the likes of Tupac and someday. I mean, after all, this is Joey Badass's debut mixtape, so this is very early Joey Badass. Next up, we have my very favorite song by Joey Badass of all time, Fromda, with Chuck Strangers producing it, as well as a wonderful feature. It samples Stetsonic and the song Go Stetsa. This is a 1997 hip hop group. So Joey Badass or Chuck Strangers must just be a big fan of them, showing the influence and the sample there. Next up, we have Survival Tactics, which is a remix, really, of Styles of Beyond, a rap group from 1998. So this was definitely, when I first heard this song, I actually really thought of like this might have been heavily inspired by NWA. And if you listen to it, it definitely has that rough, that tough, that F the police type of sound. But Styles of Beyond it's basically a remix of their song, but it's really does have that raw energy, that very rough and toughness that's really displayed on this song, and kind of this song only. This isn't a style Joey Badass really goes with a lot on his own, but it's something that I think is very interesting and shines very bright here. The next song we have is called Killuminati. This is a reference to the Don Killuminati 7-Day Theory. That is a Tupac album that was released in 1996. Joey Badass himself also says in the song, "Young cop killer, I'm that ill, so doc, will you give me 2 shots, Tupac's killer?" Young cop, that's referring to Ice-T and his song Cop Killer. Doc is most likely a reference to Dr. Dre, who was one of friends of Tupac and worked with him from time to time. So those two, so all that, even that line alone is definitely once again inspired by Tupac and those that were affiliated with Tupac back in his time. Next up, we have the song Hardknocks, samples Lewis Parker's Eyes of Dreams, 1997. This is a British rapper or producer, depending on which song you go into there. So this is, again, Joey Badass just tipping his hat to another artist that he really appreciates, really enjoys, and really just kind of wants to give a shout out to and pay homage, I believe, as well. The next song here is actually one of the more interesting ones. It's called World Domination. Now, if you listen to this song, you will notice that it actually has the exact same beat from the song Poo Putt Platter by MF Doom. This Poo Putt Platter was off of Food of MF Doom. This was really just an interlude. It was literally just a beat that kind of connected the album. And so this is the beat that's used in this song here, World Domination. And in this song, it actually samples clips from Pinky and the Brain, an old cartoon. Obviously, kind of being like Pinky and the Brain being kind of like evil geniuses in the way, which is where the title World Domination comes from. They're trying to dominate the world. They're trying to take over the world. So this evil persona that the Pinky and the Brain sample use, it's definitely a little their little style of MF Doom there. Trying to harness that evil persona, that super villain side that MF Doom basically created it to be his own. So this song is really cool because it's Joey Badass taking on the MF Doom side of things and kind of putting his own spin on it, which I think is done very well here for one song. So that's an MF Doom influence here. Next up is Pennyroyal. This beat is again a MF Doom song from the same name, Pennyroyal. But the chorus is actually from Jay-Z's Song Cry. Really just couldn't see the tears running down my eyes, so I had to make the song cry. Wonderful song. But that exact lyric is also in this song for the chorus line. The beat's from MF Doom. And so you've got a lot of New York influence here. MF Doom being from Great Britain, but he spent a lot of time in New York. He definitely one of the bigger New York rappers. And then, of course, Jay-Z. You really don't get much bigger than Jay-Z. So having these two New York influences on both inspiring parts to this song here definitely shows him giving paying a little homage, kind of shouting out the other New York greats. Next up, we have Funky Hose. This beat is from Experado's song All Night back in 1997. This is actually a pretty small New York rapper from back in the day. Definitely not one of the biggest names, but I believe this might have been just a personal favorite of Joey Badass, someone that maybe he met. I wasn't really able to find any personal connection there, but it definitely was a New York rapper again, so this must be someone that Joey Badass just enjoyed listening to growing up, and just really enjoyed. Mind you, 1999 did come out in 2012 towards the summer, so in 1997... Joey Badass was a few years old, so I mean, he was probably listening to this song once he got a little older. So this is something he might have just kind of had within his life. Next up is the song Daily Routine, and this one was actually the most difficult one I had. This was a pretty subtle sample by the Isley Brothers on their song Highway of My Life from 1973. But that's really all I could find. There wasn't really any notable references in the lyrics. That was the only sample that was utilized that I could find. So it's just, it's a little strange. I couldn't quite piece that one together. Maybe that's something I'll find later on. But it's a bit of a mystery for that one. I think it's really just kind of Isley Brothers and their huge influence for music in general. Obviously helped with hip-hop and rap, although they aren't directly a part of that community. So that one's just a little bit oddball to me. The next song, though, Snakes. That is from Alien Family by Illa J, who is the brother of Jay Dilla. But of course, the beat was produced by the legendary Jay Dilla. If you don't know who he is an incredible producer. He in the music industry was from 1996 to 2006 when he died. From Detroit, he was well respected. But really, what put him up was his producer album Donuts, and that was something he was working on essentially on his deathbed. And so he didn't really get to see the influence and great magnitude of this album since he had passed away. But it has since then been basically a milestone, the pinnacle producer album for all of rap music. Definitely worth checking out. You should definitely look at Donuts by Jay Dilla. Absolutely phenomenal listen for anyone who's looking for some instrumentals. The next song here on 1999's mixtape is Don't Front. This one's actually really interesting. It samples Lo Borges and his song Todo que voce podia ser. I really hope I didn't butcher that, but I probably did. But this is interesting because he was a pretty game-changing Brazilian songwriter. And the mother of JoeyBada is from a small Caribbean island, St. Lucia. So this may just be a sample that his family, or really just kind of something that was close to his family, something they might have listened to on their own time. But that's definitely no disrespect here to the song itself. Obviously, pretty game-changing within the Brazilian music industry. So with the Caribbean roots that JoeyBada has from his family, this could be something that they were just listening to. But it could also just be something that kind of impacted his music career and his music interest. Growing up with the Caribbean influence and family members, I'm sure he was listening to quite a few songs much like this, if not this exactly. So really cool things there. And next up we have Righteous Mind. This is samples David Axelrod's Holy Thursday back from 1968. He was a jazz composer. And as of this album is now coming towards an end, there's really only 2 songs left after this. So this is where I look at it as the album is nearing, we again see the origins of rap coming up again with that jazz sample there. So I think as the album here is coming to an end, we now see what it is that will bring the end. Seeing like what was the end before of jazz kind of dying out and obviously being a predecessor to hip hop. So I think that's where this is. I think that's why we have the jazz influence coming back up now. The beginning and basically the end of the album, we have these influences. I think showing the beginning and end of rap music, kind of how it started and how it will end, in the eyes of JoeyBada from the golden age of hip hop. The next song, Where It's At, is another J Dilla beat. Once again, absolutely legendary. That's really all there is there. It's just another J Dilla beat there. Fantastically done. Really great song. It's just well done and well utilized, as a lot of the other songs are by J Dilla's whole Donuts album there. And for the very last song here, we have Suspect or Third Eye, depending. The name's actually been switched around depending on what platform you use or when you looked at it. So this one's kind of strange there, but the point of the song here is being JoeyBada from New York, you really can't do a rap homage mixtape without having something by Nas. So this last song on the mixtape, they used the chorus line from Nas's song Suspect. So that's obviously where the song that they get the beat from. Really cool stuff there. Obviously, bringing out New York's absolute finest when it comes to music making and hip hop. And this part might actually just be a coincidence, but I think it's worth mentioning. This song here is a 12-minute song with the entirety of Pro Era going bar for bar with each other, taking turns, which sounds very similar to Odd Future's 10-minute song Oldie, which also had their song was the very last song on their album, the Odd Future Tape Volume 2, and the Odd Future album came out just 3 months prior to 1999. So this could just be a coincidence, but it also could be they heard Oldie and were heavily inspired, and they maybe took inspiration, or they just really liked it. So I'm not totally sure. I couldn't find any real connection there. But these 2 songs are incredibly similar. They're both the very last songs of these mixtapes. They're both featuring a big rap cast here, and they're both really long songs. So but they're also both really, really good. Actually, definitely worth listening to both of them. Really interesting to see how those 2 pan out together. Not exactly sure how that all pans out, though. And so that really concludes the album. And basically how I see this is JoeyBada definitely still uses old rap songs for inspiration. But I feel like his samples and his inspirations now are a little more nuanced and in some cases even more original. It's definitely a little more subtle. And it's not super clear as... just taking, just kind of putting your own spin on J Dilla beats or MF Doom beats, or just using chorus lines from Nas or Jay-Z. Those like big inspirations. You see a lot more creative freedoms being used in JoeyBada's more recent works, which is awesome. But I think what I like about this, why 1999 stands out to me so much, and why it holds such a dear place in my heart, is it's always just going to be this beautiful farewell to what rap once was. And we can argue all day on when really was the golden age of rap, or, is the 90s really all that it seems to be, or is it just nostalgia talking? But the point being here is that this time period holds very dear to Joey Badass, and it holds dear for many, many rap fans. So, with this album, I think it's just a wonderful little, just kind of send off for rap music, and being what it is, that it's just such a fantastically well done. It takes from as many inspirations as possible, specifically New York, but a lot of other great artists and great names that have come before rappers now. And I think Joey Badass just does a wonderful job here on showing us all, giving us a little taste on what rap music used to be, and kind of how, as great as it is, we will probably never have it back. And it's a shame, but it's also beautiful to see it kind of go, because all great things come to an end. And I think if it had to have an ending, I think Joey Badass with his mixtape 1999 is an absolutely incredible way for it to end. Thank you all very much. Once again, I've been Emerson, and this here is Underground Sound, Even Deeper.